There are both advantages and disadvantages to cooking after a disaster of really any kind. Operational security, available combustible materials, smoke, fire containment, and a host of other considerations, they all have to be factored into a warm meal's decision. Then there are the challenges of maintaining a heat source and the food you're trying to cook. This video will explore 12 methods to cook after a disaster and the equipment that you're going to need. We'll look at each option from an operational security standpoint, portability, cost, ease of use, efficiency, and fuel sources and requirements. This should allow you to decide which method or combination of methods will work best for you in the range of your most likely disasters. I'll warn you though that this video may be a little on the longer side because it probably will be one of the most comprehensive analysis you might find on the subject, as we try to provide as much detailed information for each of the cooking options to allow you to make the decision that really fits best for you. In the description section below, I'll post the links to each of the items we're going to discuss. There's no denying the morale-boosting nature of a warm, nutrient meal after SHTF. So let's get cooking. Please consider subscribing to our newsletter by clicking on the link in the description and comment section below. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe and click the like button to help the channel grow. Barbecue grills. This method of cooking after a disaster is probably the most ubiquitous. With either a gas or charcoal grill, you want to make sure you have at least a few pieces of cookware that can be used. This may be a cookie sheet that can be placed over the top of the grill to allow you to cook foods that might otherwise fall to the grill slats. Gas grills are great, assuming you have propane, and I always make sure to have 3 tanks in rotation on my grill so that I know I will have some when I need it. Charcoal grills, however, are superior because they can use firewood in the form of sticks, logs, splits, chunks, or charcoal briquettes. You are less confined to a single fuel source, as with gas. While some gas grills may have an optional attachment to allow you to burn charcoal, you can't do so in your typical gas grill. I list grilling first because a majority of people will be turning to this method after a disaster. If you can grill in relative safety and you live in a neighborhood where others are already grilling, fire it up and grill any meats and foods that may spoil. There will be enough people grilling to conceal your activities probably, and people may not yet be desperate. If you have a charcoal grill, make sure you have a charcoal chimney as well, since you can't rely on lighter fluid or easy lighting briquettes. Make sure you have both wood chunk and charcoal options. If you have a gas grill, make sure you're in the habit of always keeping a spare propane tank on hand. After a week into the aftermath of a disaster, any barbecue may very likely attract unwanted attention and telegraph that you have food, warmth, and carbon fuel source. Use caution at this point. Number 2, fire pits and hobo grills. We recently demonstrated how to build a Dakota fire pit, and after a disaster, an open fire might be an option. Do realize though that cooking on a fire pit can be a challenge if you lack a grill for the top of it or you don't know how to create a spit for it. You can use a cast iron cookware like a Dutch oven on a bed of coals to reduce your smoke and fire profile, but open fires present some operational security challenges. In addition to these challenges, open fires require large quantities of combustible resources, even when contained in a Dakota fire pit. Dry wood may be in short supply, and the weather may not permit you to be outside with a fire. An open fire is the least efficient. A hobo grill fashioned with a 55-gallon drum is more efficient, will smoke less, and radiate heat more efficiently. While neither a fire pit nor a hobo grill, I have to mention foldable camp grills in this category. If you have a fireplace or a small contained outdoor fire, you can quickly unfold this over your fire to have a cooking platform. You are somewhat limited by the amount of wood or charcoal you need to keep under it, but it's a great way to cook when other options aren't available. If it's in your fireplace too, the smells of delicious cooking food are venting up away from your house. This can be an essential OPSEC feature. Number 3, solo stove and tripods. These options are portable, self-contained stove systems that can burn biomass. Some provide a cooking surface, and some would benefit from a tripod hanger. Make the supported weight in the cookware you plan to use a deciding factor in purchasing any solo stove, tripod, or self-contained portable cooking system. With these methods, you gain a lot in portability. This will allow you to maintain a small footprint wherever you are. This will require less biomass to keep the heat you need, and they can easily be repacked and taken with you if you need to move to another location. These are ultra-efficient wood-burning backpack camp stoves, so they are made to burn hot and to be lightweight. With a bit of ingenuity, you can build something similar. If that's the route you want to go, you'll want to build it and practice it ahead of time. Ensure that any bonfire stove like this has an ample cook area, and ensure that you have the proper cookware and utensils that can handle the high heat. Number 4. Rocket stove. This is another contained flame system that can be used after a disaster with multiple varied fuel sources. It can be moved to safer locations and used on a deck or in the wild at a makeshift and temporary campsite. Unlike grills and fire pits, you feed the fire any type of biomass from paper to sticks to pieces of mulch, and you can obtain a fire hot enough to boil water or cook food. Having some kind of cast iron pan or pot will be a great value to you with this method, as much cookware is not made to sustain the high temperatures of an open flame. Because the light and smoke of the fire are better contained than an open fire, your operation security with something like a Minuteman K rocket stove is better. The more efficient fire results in less smoke. The cost of any mobile cooking method will be higher, of course, than digging a fire pit. It's an investment in a post-disaster solution, so you should treat it like one. If you do go this route, you can't leave it in the box. Break it out at least a few times per year and cook a meal on it. Number 5. Kettle. When it comes to lightweight, the Kettle is a leading rocket stove. I have an extensive review of this one because it is so lightweight and versatile that it can solve several post-disaster problems for you. It has the dual function of allowing you to process water for drinking or boiling, and it will provide you with a cooking surface with a chimney pot support or the Hobo stove accessory. With the small, lightweight design, you won't even notice the scant weight. All you need is a water source and some dehydrated soup mixes, and you could be eating well into a range of different disasters. The small Hobo stove turns the fire base into a standalone wood-fueled camp stove for easy cooking. This Hobo stove piece is sturdy enough to put a big cast iron pan or a Dutch oven on it. The whole Kettle system is all that most people would need through a prolonged grid down scenario, so I do highly recommend this system. Number 6. Portable folding stoves and camp stoves. Portable folding camp stoves and butane camp stoves are effective, assuming you have a supply of fuel sources in your inventory, and you should if this is a route you're planning on taking. The advantage of these cooking sources is that the fuel source burns clean. Because of this, you can cook in your garage or on the kitchen countertop. You won't be able to throw just any biomass material in there like you would with the previously mentioned methods, but you will have a more contained and controllable fire with this approach. Sometimes you'll just want a fuel source you can light even in the worst conditions, one that you can rely upon to boil water or to cook small meals. If that is the case, these camp stoves are ideal. Be warned though that these clean burn fueling stoves often have a flame you can't really see. They're burning hot, really hot, but the denatured fuel sometimes results in the lack of a visual flame. I think the Sterno campfire is a better option than some of the other solid fuel tablet options out there, only because of the design of the can. Chafing fuel will have a shelf life of 2+ years. They can be used to get fires going in poor conditions, so they have a place in the pantheon of emergency cooking for sure. A collapsible folding stove will be better than a camping stove for 2 main reasons. First, it is more easily portable and has less of a footprint. Second, its fuel source will more reliably ignite and burn than a butane or propane canister. A 7-ounce Sterno can give you 2 hours of cooking time, and a typical gas canister will provide you with 2 hours at high heat and 4 hours at a simmer. Still, a cooking stove that runs off propane can be a many-month solution if you connect it to a larger propane tank. This is a long-term home cooking solution for many worldwide when your country doesn't have a reliable grid system or flow of natural gas. An 11 to 100 pound propane tank connected to a camp stove will allow you to keep your cooking indoors and will provide you with many months of cooking time. Another option here is liquid-fueled stoves. These are powered by white gas to burn clean. Your cooking is limited to the fuel you have on hand. The old school and, in my opinion, safer version of the liquid fuel cooker is a kerosene stove. They are usually built with wind resistance in mind and get hot. Kerosene is inexpensive and a more shelf-stable alternative to liquid gas or petroleum spirit stoves. Number 7. Mini alcohol stove. Though I have kind of already addressed these with the liquid fuel stoves I just mentioned, I have to put something like the portable mini alcohol stove single burner camping stove with aluminum stand in its own category. It is the other fuel stoves refined and distilled into a lightweight, miniature unit that can burn multiple liquid fuel sources. Just remember that because the fuel sources burn so clean and hot, it may be burning though you don't even see it. This can be as dangerous as it is efficient for your OPSEC. Here I have it burning with isopropyl alcohol, but you could easily use it with any 60 proof or higher alcohol. At 2 inches and 5 ounces made of brass and conductive aluminum, it's sturdy and small. 100 milliliters or half a cup of denatured alcohol will provide 50 minutes of cook time. It's high heat and no smoke, so your OPSEC is maintained. You could, if you had to, burn other combustible liquids with it. It has drawback and limitations for sure, but given its price point and smaller size, it's a solution for many. At the very least, even if you could just heat liquids over it, you will have a high temperature heat source, well contained, with a low smokeless signature. Number 8. Can cooker. More in the cookware category, because it doesn't come with its own initial heat source, is the can cooker. The advantage of this cooker is that it only needs a low heat source to cook anything from meat to dry beans efficiently. You can get the heat from a camp stove, fuel stove, an arrangement of emergency candles, or a small contained fire as in a Hobo stove. You need a high heat initially to bring the contents to a low boil, but then you can have a very low heat source to maintain an internal cooking temperature in the cooking chamber. Depending upon what you're cooking, the initial boil may be all you need. You could then pack the cooker in an insulated bag. I have a full review of this cooker I'll link to in the description section below. Number 9. Dutch oven. The Dutch oven also fits this cookware category because it doesn't have its own heat source. Typically made out of cast iron, it will require more initial heat to get things going, but it will stay hotter on its own longer than the can cooker will. This is one you can put over the fire, in the fire, or simply stack coals on it or around it. You can bake, stew, fry, or roast an entire hunk of meat with potatoes and vegetables. To cook anything, you can put the contents inside and then stack hot coals on the lid. This will create a steady high temperature to the contents within. You control the internal temperature by the number of coals and their duration on the top. You'll want to practice, though, with a Dutch oven long before disaster necessitates its use, by simply using it in your kitchen along with your other cookware, which will be a fantastic upgrade to your cooking skills. Once you've had a pot roast cooked in your oven with a Dutch oven, you will never go back to any other method to cook that meal. Like cast iron, you have to season it and treat it well, but the same Dutch oven you invest in today will be passed on to your great-great-grandchildren. They're built to last. If you expect to be cooking outside on a fire for a very long time, or you expect you'll have a permanent campsite for a very long time, a Dutch oven is the way to go. Number 10. Thermal cookers. A thermal cooker works similar to the can cooker I already mentioned. I say similarly because they're not made to require continual heat sources to do their job. They work on the principle of not letting the initial cooking heat out. There are 2 types I've used for this purpose. The first one is the Wonder Bag. It is a heavily insulated cloth bag. All you need to do to cook your food is to bring your pot to a boil, allowing the food to be heated all the way through. Then you place a trivet or flat rock in the bag, put your pot on that, cover it with the insulative top cushion, draw the strings of the bag around it, and then wait. The Wonder Bag keeps the heat from escaping and keeps it concentrated in your food. The low, slow heat will keep all the foods cooking, whether a stew, roast, hard beans, or pasta. The same principle of retaining the heat to cook is one of my favorites, the thermal pot. Thermal cooking is an ancient form of cooking, but the thermal pot brings it neatly into the modern age. With this design, the cook pot is heated to around a boiling point of 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it's placed in the super insulated outer pot. It traps the heat, and the external pot doesn't get hot, and it can be easily carried, moved, or just set somewhere to complete its cooking process. The heat cooks the food slowly in the same way as a slow cooker would. If you don't open the insulated outer pot, it can retain a temperature above 160 Fahrenheit almost 9 hours and above 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 hours. Still, if you don't open it at all, your slow, consistent high temperature above 160 degrees Fahrenheit brings about another magical property of cooking, pasteurization. The application of low temperature for long duration will effectively render inert any bacteria in your food. It's not a permanent solution by any means, and it isn't as reliable as a water bath pressure canning, but if you keep it sealed, you could confidently eat from it a day or 2 after you put it in the insulated outer pot, perhaps even longer. Another obvious advantage to a thermal cooker is that it requires just your initial heat source. Then you can tuck the cooker away. Your operational security is maintained because your fire is out, and the smell of your cooking isn't released. Most preppers have hard beans and rice as part of their prepping supplies. This cooking method is ideal over a long, multi-hour slow cooking process over a heat source. Here I put both the pot and the bag to the test. With 1 cup of dried pinto beans, some spices, a can of tomato sauce, a can of diced tomatoes, and a bouillon cube each, it is similar in ingredients to what I might have after disaster. I bring both pots to a boil, then seal them in their respective containers. 4 hours later, the hard beans were cooked thoroughly. Definitely consider one of these if you haven't already. Number 11. Electrical cookers. Because gas and solar generators have become an affordable emergency option for many, I have to include hot plates and beverage heaters in a post-disaster emergency cooking scenario. Sometimes all you need to survive is heated water. For that purpose, I have a heater coil. These get super hot but only draw 12 volts, 10 amps, or 120 watts. Because of this, you can run them off your car battery or generator with a minimal draw. Boiled water opens up a multitude of cooking options for you. If you use a generator or solar energy system, a slightly larger hot plate will draw more electricity from your power source but provide you with even more options. The pan I got took a while to heat up, but the hot plate was hot and stayed hot long after it was turned off. This single plate flat burner unit will draw more electricity, but it quickly gets things up to a cooking temperature. If I couple this with a thermal cooker, I can avoid running it for too long of a single period. If I couple it with the solar generator, I will still have hours of cooking time from a replenishable energy source. My advice in this category is to read the reviews and don't go cheap. Consider it an investment, even if a more low-cost one than some of the other cooking methods mentioned earlier. The reason why is because these are made to slow and increase resistance to the flow of electricity, and that's why they get hot. That's also why they can be dangerous if not well built. Number 12, solar cookers. No power, no problem, so as long as the sun is shining. Solar cookers are an efficient way to cook after disaster. If you've ever led a Cub Scout activity building a solar cooker, you know you can't just easily throw one together after a disaster. The parabolic focusing of light waves is a science, and cooking with one of these is challenging. If the sun isn't shining or you can't remain stationary for an extended period of time, you might not be able to get enough heat for long enough to cook effectively. Suppose you're in a permanent location with steady direct sunlight. You won't find a more reliable cooking method, which is why an excellent solar cooker is a high priority piece of prepping equipment. A well-made unit is expensive because it is so precisely made. Its fuel source is the sun, so there's no wood or biomass for any fires or electrical requirements. From an OPSEC standpoint, you have a super shiny, mirror-like reflective device sitting out on your lawn or in a clearing in the woods, so that's an obvious drawback. It is the anywhere the sun is shining aspect that makes this a viable solution. The problem, though, with these is no sun and no cooking. They require constant direct sun and adjustment. It's not something you're likely to be successful with on your first try, so try a few meals to get the sense of it. It's not really something you can quickly get the hang of and pull out any time to whip up a meal. Commit to cooking one meal on it every month so you'll be ready after disaster. What may work for some because of their region and the disaster they will likely face may not work for others. Many people would struggle to heat up a cup of noodles once the power goes out or the natural gas stops flowing. It's a misconception that either electricity or gas is a reliable means of post-disaster cooking. Failures across Texas natural gas operations and supply chains due to extreme temperatures were the most significant cause of the power crisis that left millions of Texans without heat and electricity. In many cases, gas and municipal electric systems, they rely upon each other, and you have to depend on the lines remaining unbroken and untampered with to keep a continual flow of either. Even gas pumping stations at the source, running off of natural gas, coming right up out of the ground and converting that to electricity to pump gas to your home, are rendered useless if there's a line break or a block or two from your house. Likewise, you can also rely on the safety of a fire or the biomass of fuel necessary to keep a fire going. Consider the 12 options I've covered here and try to deploy 2 or more of them each month in your prepping life to ensure you have redundancy and multiple options. In this way, after disaster strikes or SHTF, you will be able to roll over to a different style of cooking seamlessly. Maintaining access to cooked and heated food is not only the only way to prevent foodborne illnesses, it's a psychological boost that can keep you going. Just the time preparing food can keep your mind occupied and off the troubles that may be swirling around outside. Consider mobility, ease of use, your OPSEC, cookware, and your heating requirements and fuels when considering any long-term solution. What do you think? What's your best solution for cooking after a disaster? Or what combination of solutions are you planning on deploying? Is there a method I haven't mentioned here? Let us know in the comments below and we'll consider it for a future video. I try to read the comments and respond to them when I can. That's typically within the first hour of releasing a video. I can notify you when other videos become available if you take that step to subscribe to this channel. As always, please stay safe out there.